Hello, gang. Tattooed Biker here with you. Tonight, I've got a real banger in store for you. Since my Halloween episode, I've been getting lots of reports of ghosts and the supernatural emailed to me. And I've got 3 fantastic ones for you tonight. Now, you'll be thinking about these long after this video is over. So, enough messing around. Grab your boots. Let's ride to Ghost Country. Number 1. Dear Biker, I grew up in a rural area and at one time bore witness to a real atrocity carried out by native tribesmen on European settlers that were living there. But I'm not sure if this has anything to do with what I'm about to tell you. When I was a child of maybe 6 or 7 years old, my bed was situated against a bank of windows, and I would lay looking out into the night until I fell asleep. One very moonlit evening, as I lay there, I distinctly remember seeing the shadow of a boy running across our yard. This was extremely odd given that our house sat atop a hill, about 150 feet from the road. Being a child, I wanted to run outside after him, but he moved so quick that he was gone before I stood up from my bed. As the years went by, I thought about this many times, and I wondered if it was just my youthful imagination. Fast forward to when I was about 16 and had started sneaking cigarettes from my mom's pack. Then one day I was out sitting on some concrete steps, enjoying one of my ill-gotten smokes and keeping a close eye and ear against being caught smoking by my parents. And that's when it happened again. I'll be damned if that shadow didn't run past quickly and silently, not even 10 feet from where I sat. Mind you, there was no physical body to have cast this shadow. No sound of feet falling on the lawn, just the unmistakable silhouette of a child running as fast as he could across our lawn toward a thick section of woods that ran along the northern line of our property. I was blown away, to say the least, but I didn't mention this to anyone for several days until one night I brought it up to my older sister, who, by the way, seemed to be an antenna for supernatural events of all sorts of strangeness. All at once, she lost all color in her face, abandoning all cheerful expression when she looked at me blankly and just said, "So you see him too?" Apparently, this little apparition had appeared to her as a solid, living boy of about 9 or 10, wearing overalls, with a well-worn newsboy-style hat on his head. He beckoned to the girls to follow him into the woods. Only the females saw him in this form, and as far as I know, I'm the only one to see him as a shadow. After I explained to my sister what it was that I saw, not a full figure of a child, but merely the shadow cast by an unseen body, she informed me that our oldest sister had seen him too, and several of their friends. My mom and 3 of my aunts as well. I asked my cousin about this years later, and before I could even finish the question, she described the boy in the overalls and hat just the way my sister had years before. And if that isn't creepy enough, a few years back I was hired to do an electrical installation at the new home of the daughter of one of the girls who used to frequently visit our farm. This girl had stayed in touch with my mom and continued visiting her even after my sister married and moved away. One morning, as I prepared myself for work, she approached me, and she asked if I was aware that she often visited my parents when she was a girl. I said that I did remember her being there with her mom. And then, just out of nowhere, she says, "Did you ever see a little boy in overalls and an old hat over by the woods?" This gave me quite a shock, as no one had mentioned this for many years. Well, I suppose he's still there, although all of us have grown up and gone now. But not him, I reckon. I guess he's still running through the night from some danger from long ago, and still trying to entice the girls to follow him into that small patch of woods. Thanks, Biker, for letting me share. Signed, Robbie. Number 2. Dear TB, this is the first time that I'm actually submitting this anywhere. So when I was 13, my older brother, who was 18 at the time, well, we were on our way to a movie when we were hit by a drunk driver. I woke up in the hospital some 4 days later, having lost my right leg and the other leg in a cast, along with a multitude of other injuries. That night I woke up to my brother, sitting by my bed telling me that everything would be okay and that I should go back to sleep, that I needed my rest. The next day, our parents came to visit and see how I was doing. I asked why my brother wasn't with them, and they just looked at each other but didn't say anything. That night, I again woke up to my brother sitting by my bed telling me that he knows that I can get through this, and I need to be strong and not let my injuries stop me from living life. We talked for a bit. He wouldn't answer specific questions, but answered more general ones. I remember asking him why he was still wearing the same clothes from yesterday, because that was very unlike him to wear anything similar to what he wore the day before. He never answered that, but when I asked about how he was, he said he was better than he thought he would be, given the circumstances. He reminded me again to be strong and to keep living and not to let anything stop me, and how much he loved me, before telling me that I should get some sleep. The next day, our parents again came to visit, and I asked why my brother wasn't with them, and they looked at each other, and it was only after I said that I would like a family visit together and not at different times, and would like Andy to come during the day when we could talk more instead of just at night. And that's when my dad asked what I meant. And then I told him that Andy had been coming every night since the accident to visit me in my room. My mom suddenly broke down and ran out of the room. My dad then told me that what I said was impossible because, well, Andy had died instantly in the accident. I didn't believe it, and I argued. And I ended up getting so angry that I had to be sedated. That night, Andy didn't visit. And the next day, my parents brought me a newspaper article about the accident. Years later, my fiance had an experience, and having never seen a photo of my brother, she described him to a T and what he was wearing. But that's a story for another time. But it was nice knowing that he's still around and looking out for me and those I love. Thanks. Signed, Ben. Quick narrator's note here. Well, after he mentioned that his fiance also had an experience, well, I just couldn't help myself. So I emailed Ben back and I asked if I could possibly hear her story. Well, he replied, and let me tell you, it doesn't disappoint. Hey, Biker. Thanks for writing me back. I got permission from my fiance to share this. Something to note before getting into what happened. My fiance never met my brother. Never seen photos of him before this. Well, my fiance is bipolar, with extreme highs and extreme lows. We had been dating for about 4 months then, and had just moved in together. And I didn't know at the time, but she had gone off her meds. This all happened while I was at work, and she told me about it later. She had gone out for a walk to get some air because she was feeling really claustrophobic, the start of a manic depressive episode. It got to the point where she thought dying would be the best option, and standing there at the corner, she thought the best idea would be just to walk out into traffic. As she took a step off that curb, someone grabbed her and pulled her back and turned her around into a hug, arms wrapped around her, telling her that she doesn't truly want to do this, that everything's going to be okay, and that she's stronger than she realizes, and it just isn't her time. They told her to just breathe nice and slow. She looked up at him and said thanks, turned around to wipe her eyes, and when she turned back, he was gone. She told me about this when I got off work, and she wanted to put up a post online see if she could find the guy to say a proper thank you for his help in saving her. It was when she started saying what he told her and describing him that my heart started pounding. I knew who helped her. She described him as being 17 to 18 years old, athletic, slightly taller than her, dark brown shaggy hair, with a big birthmark under his eye with a blue t-shirt that said JS Jinx in yellow letters. It brought back the visits I got in the hospital, the shirt my brother wore on the day of the accident, and when I saw him in my hospital bed. I told her that I knew who had helped her, but I couldn't explain it. I told her it was my brother, and she said that was impossible. It was a real person. She got mad at me for even suggesting it because, well, she never believed in ghosts or spirits or anything like that. She's always been very skeptical. I asked her to just please trust me. And that same night, we drove out to my parents' house, and I went down into the basement and found a picture of my brother and asked if that was who had helped her. And she went pale and just kept asking how it was possible. I had no idea what to say because, well, I didn't know either. But I told her how he came to me in my time of need, and it looks like he came to her as well. It's all still crazy to think about, and I definitely can't explain it. Signed, Ben. Number 3. Hey TB. Well, I've been told this by several different people, and I believe this story to be 100% true for that reason and a few others. It all started when my grandma left my abusive grandpa many years before I was born, and she moved herself and 2 of her 3 daughters, my mom and aunt, into a new house. My aunt met a guy and they started dating. He was what you would call a greaser in those days. Hot rod driving, leather jacket wearing, greased back hair having dude. This would have been back in the early 70s. Most nights he would park down the street and walk to her bedroom window, tap on it, and she would let him in. Her bedroom was at the back of the house, and the driveway was gravel, and it went past my mom's bedroom. My mom told me that every time he did it, she would hear his boots crunching in the gravel as he walked by. Somehow she met the man who would eventually become my uncle, and she broke things off with the guy. He didn't take it very well. Well, it wasn't long after that one night he stopped by and tapped on the window. She let him in, and they talked for over an hour. And as soon as he left, the phone rang in the living room, and she went out to answer it. Her friend was on the other end sobbing. She told my aunt that he had passed away. He had driven around in his hot rod with a buddy, drinking liquor and shooting mailboxes. Afterwards, they pulled into a convenience store parking lot, and when his friend had gone in, he took the pistol and ended it. My aunt said that was impossible. He had just left her house. That's when she looked up at that moment and saw him standing outside the window, staring at her with blood all over his face. She screamed, waking everyone in the house, and he disappeared. My aunt told them that night what had gone on. That was the only time that she had ever spoken about it. I've asked her a few times to tell me, and she wouldn't. Grandma and Mom eventually told me about it years later at different times. From then on, my mom would hear his boots crunching in the gravel every night, and my aunt could hear him tap on the window. It got so bad for my aunt that she begged my mom to switch rooms. They did, and then my mom was the one who heard him tapping at the window. Also, my grandma told me they would occasionally find his brand of cigarette butts in the ashtrays, and he was the only one that ever smoked them. A few other things happened in that house before they moved, like my grandma waking up one morning with her face just an inch from the ceiling. After she screamed, the bed fell back to the floor. Back in 2008 or so, I happened to deliver a pizza to that house. I asked the woman if anything strange ever went on there. She just froze. She said that the back room window gets tapped on all the time, as well as an occasional knocking on the side door. And even though the driveway was paved, she could hear what sounded like footsteps on gravel late at night. Her husband worked third shift, so he didn't believe her or the kids, but she said almost every night something strange happened there. After hearing your Halloween special, I thought you would find this experience interesting. Signed, Zeke. And there it is. All I have for you tonight. 3 true ghost stories and paranormal experience from real viewers, just like you. So what'd you think about these? I'm anxious to hear your thoughts and theories down in the comment section below, but please, keep it respectful to the witnesses. And if you've got an experience or a strange encounter that you'd like to share, just send it to the email address in the description and, well, your story may just wind up in a future video. Anyways, thanks so much for riding with me tonight. I really appreciate you. And until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you on down the road a ways. Biker out.